Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a cute ballerina. Starting with the legs, I'm using saracino skin tone modelling paste. Rolling a thick sausage, I'm just going to roll it slightly thinner towards each end. Then folding it in half, this will create the two legs. And now I just want to form the knee of each one. So I'm rolling about halfway down each leg. To create the foot, you first need to create the ankle. So just rolling it between my fingers about 1 centimetre from the end of each leg will create a nice ankle, and then just shaping the front of the foot and the heel of the foot and just squeezing and shaping until you've got a nice foot shape. Do the same on the other leg and just make sure both feet match in size. Now to make the skirt, I'm using pink saracino modelling paste and I'm rolling it out nice and thin. Now I'm going to make 2 layers. So the first one will be slightly bigger and I'm going to cut out a circle using a scalloped edged circle cutter and just checking the size of it. Make sure it doesn't come down as far as the knees. I'm just going to thin all the way around the edge with a bulbous cone tool. And just keep lifting it and moving it so that it doesn't stick to the surface. And then when it's done, I'm just going to check that it still looks okay on the legs. So taking a slightly smaller one now, I'm just going to repeat and thin it around the edge. Then I'll attach it with a little bit of water to the legs and then a little bit of water to each other. Now for the body, I'm taking another piece of the pink paste. I'm just going to roll it into an egg shape. So it's slightly tapered at the bottom, a bit wider at the top. Just checking the size and then using a lolly stick, just going to secure it to the main legs. Now for the arms. Back to the skin tone modelling paste. Again, I'm rolling out a sausage, keeping the centre thick and thinning out and tapering off the ends. For each end, I'm just going to roll a wrist about 1 centimetre away from the end again. Just making sure that it looks fine and then pressing down and shaping it into a teardrop shape. To form the elbows, I'm doing exactly the same as I did for the legs, and that's just rolling it halfway down each side. Next, I need to place it onto the body. So using a little bit of water on the top of the body, I'm just going to place it centrally on top and then just model it into place. Now I'm just going to lift off and form the fingers. So using a knife, I'm cutting a section for the thumb. So I'm going about halfway up the hand and then trimming that down so that the thumb's not as long as the fingers. And then to form the fingers, I'm just going to press 3 lines into the base of the hand. So now just shaping it and smoothing it over so that there's no sharp edges. Doing the same for the other end and then just making sure that it's all the same size. I'm just going to place that back onto the body and then just arrange the arms so that they sit nicely. So back to the pink modelling paste, I'm just going to roll out a small amount and cut 2 even strips, and then just check these and make sure that they're long enough to sit over the shoulders. So I'm just going to stick them in place and trim the ends. Now with a small scalloped piece, I'm just thinning out the edges again, and I'm going to stick that onto the top of the bodice just to finish it off nicely. Moving on to the head, I'm using modelling paste again, skin tone colour, and I'm just checking the size compared to the body, just making sure it's in proportion. And now just squeezing behind the chin just to thin out the bottom of the face area a little bit more. Keep checking that it looks like it's going to be in good proportion with the body. Now pressing over the top half of the face and smoothing it out with my finger, I'm just forming the main shape of the face. So I'm forming the eye sockets using the PME bone tool. Using the largest side of it, I'm just pressing in equally on each side and then just smoothing over with my finger just to make sure that it's nice and smooth and you can't see any sharp edges. Now to create the shape of the nose, I'm just using the large end of the Dresden tool and just gently pressing into the nose to shape it. Be careful not to press into the face because this will just hollow out the cheeks. So I'm just going to keep pressing it and then pinching down the nose, and then with the tool just cupping the base of the nose as well. So it's important to take your time, go gently and keep going until you form a really nice shaped nose. You then need to start shaping away around the mouth area and around the bottom of the cheeks, and just giving the face a little bit more of a shape. So I'm just going to keep going and keep tidying up areas and taking my time just to make sure that it's completely right. Now using the thin end of the Dresden tool and with the back of the tool, I'm just shaping out the actual mouth, and then swapping round to the larger end of the tool, I'm going to just cup the mouth open. So pressing the tool in, lifting it slightly to pull the mouth out, and then doing the same at the bottom of the mouth for the bottom lip. And then as I do that, I just need to keep shaping around, using the tool as a guide to model and shape the actual shape of the mouth. Now just to add a bit more shape to the lips, first of all I'm creating the little line that you get on the top of your lips, and then just pressing a little bit more detail into the bottom lip and into the top lip. As you can see, I'm just using the tool around the outside of the lips just to add a little bit more shape and form. Here I'm just shaping around the base of the face and the shape of the chin a little bit more, just to give it a nice delicate look. And then squeezing off and pinching off any excess around the back, ready to place onto the actual neck. So I'm just forming a neck around the top of the lolly stick and then smoothing it into the shoulders so that you can't see the crease, using the Dresden tool to make it nice and smooth. So moving on to the eyes, I've rolled 2 oval shaped pieces of white modelling paste, and then just using a little bit of water and placing them into the eye sockets, making sure that they're the same size. So I'm flattening them a little but not too much. I'm cutting the irises from a piece of brown modelling paste using a number 6 PME icing tube. So I'm just cutting out the 2 circles and I'll place those onto the whites of the eyes with a little bit of water. Now for the pupils, I'm going to use the number 3 PME icing tube to cut out 2 slightly smaller circles, and then placing those on top of the irises with a little bit of water again. Rolling a thin sausage of skin tone colour, I'm now just cutting a couple of small pieces that I can place over the top of the eyes, and this will form the upper eyelid. Now I'm just pressing them down slightly and making sure they're nice and neat on each eye and they're actually equal in size. Now with a tiny piece of white icing, rolling it very thin into a really thin sausage, I'm just cutting a couple of pieces from it, and then I'll place those onto the top of each pupil to create the catch lights. rolling a really thin sausage now out of black. I'm just going to create the upper eyelashes. So I'm just going to create the nostrils using a cocktail stick, but also just to add a little bit more refinement to the tip of the nose. Rolling a thin sausage of white modelling paste, just going to take a piece, trim it and place it into the mouth using a little bit of water. Once it's in the mouth, I'm just going to push it in a little bit more and make sure it's firmly pressed just under the bottom lip. And then I'll trim away the excess at the end of each side of the mouth. So I'm just using the thin end of the Dresden tool just to make sure that it's actually pressed a little bit more into the mouth and it's not right on the edge of the lip. I'm now creating a very thin lower eyelid, and then I'll just attach them in place and make sure that they're trimmed nice and neatly at the edge of each eye. I'm adding colour to the cheeks and to the lips using the saracino dust. So starting with the cheeks, I'm just brushing a little bit of dry dust directly onto the cheeks, but making sure that I've taken all the excess off the brush first so that it doesn't appear too heavy and too blotchy. Moving on to the lips, I'm using the deeper pink dust and I'm mixing it with just a little touch of water. Using a very fine brush, I'm just very carefully brushing the detail onto the bottom lip and onto the upper lip. If for some reason you accidentally get too much on there or you get too much around the outside of the lips, all you need to do is get a damp brush and brush it away. I'm now pressing around the bottom of the mouth just to close the mouth a little bit more. Now I can place the head onto the neck and just position it at an angle slightly. Moving on to the hair, taking some brown modelling paste. I'm using a buttercream piping nozzle to cut a disc. I'm just going to roll it a little bit more, stretch it out slightly, and then with a little water I'm attaching it to the base, well, to the back of the head. It's okay at this point to take the head off, and especially if you find it easier that way. Using the Dresden tool, I'm just creating the individual hair strands around the whole section of the head. Now with another piece of the brown, I'm just going to roll a sausage. First of all, I measured the size of the bun and then just rolled that into a sausage and then just curl it up and get that nice bun shape, and then place it there with a little water. Give it a little bit of a press just to make sure that it stays. Now to finish off, I'm just going to create some curly bits for the front of her face. So rolling a nice long thin sausage and then cutting it down into sections. So about 4 sections should be enough. And then taking a cocktail stick and twisting each piece around a cocktail stick, creating curly strands. So I'm just going to brush the hairline with a little bit of water and then attach 2 curly strands to each side of the face. But before I do that, I'm just going to add some ears, otherwise the curls will be in the way. So just forming 2 little oval shapes and pressing them onto the side of the head so they're just slightly below the eyes. Now using the small end of the ball tool, I'm just pressing into the ear. This will form the shape and it will also help keep the ear in place. Now back to the curly strands, I'm just going to place those on each side and just arrange them so they look nice and natural. So I'm now just going to cut a few small pieces to create a little bit of a fringe and then to completely finish the hair off. So I'm just using the cocktail stick just to tweak it in a few places, and that's it. The ballerina is now finished.